Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today is we are going to be talking about business owners. Oh, wait, I got the wrong one up here. Sorry. So sorry. You are not here for financial literacy for business owners. That was yesterday. Let me kill that one. You're actually here for Business Plans 101. And where did I go? Sorry, I was having I was looking at it. There it is. That's the one I want. Sorry about that. I was reviewing my notes from yesterday and I put the wrong slide up. So this is what happens when you are doing things fast and loose. And I did not mean to put that up there. All right, so let's try that one more time. I'm going to swap that around. And in the meantime, while you're waiting for me to get my head out of my butt, let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in or what business idea that you have. So yes, you are in the right thing if you're here for business owners or for business plans 101. And let me try to share my screen one more time. And here we are. Ta-da! Isn't that magical? Okay, let's try this again. Mark Dolfini, it's good to see you, Strategic Boardroom, and you're here to learn about Business Plans 101. This is by far one of my more popular sessions that I go through because there's so many people who have lots of different questions around formulating business plans. And if you have got an existing business or if you have an idea for a business and you're trying to think about putting a business plan together, you're in the right spot. So you might be thinking, if you've got a business already up and running, what would be the purpose of a business plan? Well, lots of reasons. Like maybe you're trying to reorganize different things. Maybe you're trying to get things running smoother. Maybe you're trying to launch a new product or a new service. Maybe you're trying to head into a completely new market and you need a business plan for that. There's lots of reasons for doing that. So this is where we're at today. All right, so we've got a couple of people already. It's good to see you. Let's see. I Shashina French, very good. Nice to meet you. Columbus, Ohio. Oh, we're not far away. I'm in Lafayette, Indiana, so we're about 3 hours away from each other. And I am the Chief People Advisor for HR Power Consulting. Excellent. Very, very good. I love that. Love that. Love the consulting industry. I love work with lots of different consultants. And we'll talk more about that. So it's good to have you here, Gigi, from Seattle, representing the Pacific Northwest. I'm glad you're here from Seattle, living in Chandler, Arizona. Okay, so you're representing the Southwest. AI Founders VC Funding Foundation. Excellent foundation. This is going to be helpful for you. You're going to see a lot of different. You're probably going to see a lot of things that we talk about in your industry. You're going to see a lot of the business plans today in Business Plans 101. So for those of you who have not or being a little bit shy, please let me know where you're at and maybe what line of work that you're in or what business ideas that you have. So we have a ton of information to get through today. This is one of the grinder sessions. This is a longer session. So I'm just going to let you know right now, we're probably going to be about maybe quarter past or maybe even 20 past the top of the next hour. So I just want to let you know this is a longer session and it's because there's so much information in there. And if you guys have questions, I'm going to stop and answer those questions. So again, I'm not going to try to truncate things for the sake of time. I want to make sure that you guys are getting all the answers to your questions. So, man, we've got a lot of people signed up for this. So for those of you who are, again, just joining and you are interested in Business Plans 101, let's get to this. So before I get to this really fast, I'm just going to make this mention. In not this coming Saturday, but a week from Saturday, I have the Money and Finance Business Owner Bootcamp. I'll go ahead and put the link to that session if you're interested. It is available in Eventbrite, and it does cost a few dollars. I know most of the stuff that I do is for free. This one does cost a few bucks, and the reason for that is because it's a 3-hour bootcamp, and we're going to go through everything about making sure you understand all the different concepts of accounting and bookkeeping, but as a business owner. I'm not trying to make you into a bookkeeper. I'm not trying to make you an accountant, nothing like that, or a tax accountant. I want you to understand your books as a business owner, and that's why I've got that session planned. So if you're interested, it's in the link right there. But so we will keep rolling. All right, Joseph Sanchez is an agent with New York Life in Newport, California. Very good. Joseph, I feel like I've seen you before. So if you're back, welcome. Hi, Teal. Oh yeah, OH. IO. I know your scheme. You come in here into Purdue country and decimate us all the time. So it's good to see you. All right. Fashionette. Very good. Austin, Texas, just gathering knowledge. Okay, fantastic, Fashionette. Good for you. And Joseph Sanchez, you say thank you very much. It is truly my pleasure to have you here. And here's Teal. Hey Teal, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you could join us today. All right, and Teal, are you home? Teal and I have worked together for quite some time, so it's good to see you. All right, I'm glad you can make this session. All right, so what we're talking about today is a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. And I know that may sound a little bit militant, but listen, I'm not going to get super granular on things because I don't know your business. I don't know exactly where you're trying to grow. So we are going to take a strategic approach. And that, by the way, is a business plan. A business plan is going to take these big conceptual ideas and break them down and bring it more granular. That's the point. So by virtue of what a business plan is helping you think more strategic. And you might be thinking, well, what's the idea? What's the concept being strategic? Well, think of yourself like a battlefield general. Does a battlefield general know how to do all the individual things of all the individual units on the battlefield? No. A battlefield general probably doesn't know how to drive a tank and fly an airplane and fly a helicopter and also do amphibious assault. Probably only knows one of those narrow specialties, but does know the capabilities of each one of those functions, does know the capabilities of the mortarman, does know the capabilities of the ground tactical units and the helicopters and so forth. So that's what I wanted to do for you, is so you can have this broad scope, so you can put everything on the table and recognize what your assets are, and then you could plan around those assets. Does that make sense? And if there are different things that you might need, then you could start to think about, okay, that's what a business plan does. So who is this specifically for? Who is this for? This is for new or established businesses. So if you are a new or established business and you are, like, again, you might think, well, if I'm a new business, that makes sense why I might want to have a business plan. That stands to reason, right? It helps you get more clarity, more organized. But if you're an established business, you might think, well, why would I have a business plan? Why would I take the time to do that if I'm already established? For everything that I just said in the very beginning, for those of you who maybe want to open up a new market, maybe you've been struggling and you're ready to reorganize your existing business. Maybe you've never had clarity to begin with. Maybe you never started out with a business plan. A business plan can help with a lot of different areas. So we're going to keep rolling. We've got a couple of people here that are also saying hello. Rhonda, Killeen, Texas, CEO of Black Sheep Elite. That is super cool. What does Black Sheep Elite do, Rashonda? Let me know in the comments. And Teal is in Maryland right now. Okay, right. Well, you can still represent Ohio. And let's catch up soon. I got a couple of things I wanted to keep you in the loop with, Teal. So let's catch up real soon. And April is saying hi from Colorado, looking to learn more about writing a business plan. Excellent. Do you have a business plan, a business in mind, April, or are you just here searching for ideas? So let me know. So here is one thing I just want to make a quick plug for. This is my school community. If you are interested and you are looking for stuff like this, but that does go into more granular level. I'm not going to mention this again because I do want to, I'm just kind of focusing on the training today. I'm not here to plug things, but if you want to go to school, it's a online community for folks who are just like you, entrepreneur, maybe looking to be around other entrepreneurs, business owners. So that is all I'm going to say about that. All right. So let's get to the agenda for today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the framework of your business and the personal and business framework that are going to get you that clarity so you can have your best life, your best business. And we're going to be talking about that framework. I'm going to be talking about the systems component. Then we're going to be talking about the people component within the business. So you might be thinking, well, remember, this is all about putting together and fabricating a business plan. What I'm going to be teaching you is a framework on how to gather all this data first. And then when you plug it into a business plan, I'm going to show you how to plug that in. So at the very end, I'm going to show you how to get a business plan template that you can use for 100% free. I'll show you where you go on my website. You can get it for free. Don't multitask. If I send it to you now, you're like, oh, and then you're going to sit there and scroll through it the entire time. And I don't want you to multitask. Please stay plugged in. So I'm going to show you the framework, and then I'm going to talk about the people that will operate within that framework. Okay. Then we're going to be talking about the 4 core functions of business, which are true for every single business, regardless of the business. It has to have these 4 core functions. And then we're going to be talking about scaling and growing that business. Scaling is not the same as growing. Growing is a little bit more linear, whereas scaling is a little bit more exponential. So that is the difference there. And then finally, at the very end, we'll be talking about some resources. So let's get to the systems, the framework that is the foundation for all of this. So when we're talking about the framework, we're talking about the system. Everything I'm going to be talking about is in this book here, The Time Wealth Advantage. I'm not here to promote the book. If you're interested in getting a little bit deeper dive on the Viper framework, this is you can get, if you're outside the US, you can get it, order it from Amazon. That's probably your best bet to get it the fastest. If, however, you're inside the US and you would like a signed copy, you can go to strategicboardroom.com and you can order it there. It's right on the main page. You cannot miss it. But again, so that is the Time Wealth Advantage, and everything in that book is what I talked about in the Viper framework. So I really went into a deep dive in that Viper framework, and that's what I'm going to be talking about here for a few minutes. So everything within the Viper framework is what you're going to use, and you're going to take pieces of this and plug directly into your business plan. Make sense? So stay with me for a few minutes. We're going to be talking about some personal stuff here, but only for a minute. And that's something you do not find in a business plan. But the business plan exists to have a well-running business for what? To create a job for you? So you can have friends that you pay? No, I'm assuming not. No, so you can have a better life outside of the business. That's why you want to have a well-running business that serves you, not you serving it. So let's talk about the Viper framework and how this actually can help do that and deliver that best life for you. So the Viper framework is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. And that framework, and again, this is a top-down strategic framework in terms of how you're going to do things. So we are going to be talking a little bit about planning, but we're also going to be talking a little bit about executing and about making sure you're doing things a certain way every single day. So if you guys have questions along the way, please type them into the chat, because I do have some natural breakpoints here where I have to take a drink of water and things like that. So Rashonda is saying, well, technically I'm starting up my business and kind of need more guidance. My business provides safety for myself and you. Oh, security. Okay, excellent. Perfect. I love that. I have a very, very good friend who does security systems, and he's been doing that since we left high school, like 100 years ago. All right. Dylan is from Portugal, 25, and co-founder of a small construction company with my father. Excellent. Searching for knowledge to keep growing the company. Fantastic. This will certainly help you. Gigi says, I lost you. If you guys are having issues with connection, I know sometimes logging out and logging back in does help. Unfortunately, I don't have any control over that. So if you do try that, that does tend to help out. So I do apologize for having connection issues. So, all right, so let's keep rolling. So the Viper framework, let's start with vision. Vision is made up of two components. There is the personal vision and the business vision. And these things are, both of them are absolutely necessary, but everything exists to serve that personal vision. So just give me a minute or two. We're going to talk about the personal stuff, and then the rest of this time, we're going to be talking about business vision. But everything exists to serve that personal vision. And the personal vision, anytime I bring this up, I know a lot of people think, oh, that's my why. I think it's deeper than that. I think it's more than that. Like, I think this is a little bit more personal to you, not just why you get out of bed every day, because we all have responsibilities. We all have people who rely on us. We all have those expectations, right? And that might be your why. But really, the personal vision is about where you want to go in life, right? Think about where you want to go. Like, Teal, where do you want your life to be? Like, what do you want your relationships to look like? What do you want your relationships with your family to look like? With your spouse or your significant other? What do you want your relationship with your children to look like? What do you want your relationship with your friends to look like? And you need to define those things. So when you start to define those things, and not just relationships, of course, we all want cool stuff. Okay, fine. Define what cool things you want, but bring that back to the relationships and how it's going to make those relationships better. Because I can't tell you how many people who get into later stages in life and realize that they don't have anybody to walk with anymore, because they haven't had anybody to walk with for a really long time. And part of my personal vision is I started to think about what do I want the relationships for those people who are close to me. I wanted those things to look like. You want to guess what I did at 10:45 this morning? I was at the jumpy place. And that's what our 3.5-year-old daughter calls those trampoline parks, right? I think kids literally should name everything. But that's where I was at. You know why? Because that's in line with my vision. I don't want to be so busy that I'm missing out on awesome things like that. And she dragged me through all these different things. And I cannot tell you at 53 years old how exhausting those places are, right? But climbing through ball pits and in those big foam square things. But that is part of my personal vision. So I want you to take time to actually define what that is. The business vision, on the other hand, is, okay, cool. That's where you want to be. Let's figure out how to get there. The business vision exists to serve the personal vision, not the other way around. Because I've seen this many, many times where I've been in conferences and masterminds sitting next to people who are absolutely crushing it financially, but their home life was a train wreck. And you know what they were more worried about? Getting an extra comma in their bank account, making an extra little bit more money, even though they wouldn't have to work another day in their life if they didn't want to. But the thing was, because they only created a business vision, their personal vision was their business vision. That was it. They existed to serve the business. And the danger in creating a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you, that sucks. It's a well that never gets filled in. So here, let me talk for another 30 seconds on personal vision, and then we'll move on. The personal vision component, when you're thinking about personal vision, I want you to think about like a 100th birthday speech. You're turning 100 years old, and I want you to think of who would you want to be in the room, and what would you say to the people in the room? So there you are, you're turning 100, and now here's your big moment. What would you say? Or what would you want others to say to you when you're done speaking? Or even better, what would you want the legacy? What would you want the message that people would carry on outside the room to others when you were done talking? So that is the biggest, this is it. This is all I'm going to talk about on the personal vision. And we'll put the fries in the bag, and I won't bring this up again. However, just because we're moving on does not mean that you can't think about this stuff. And I have a whole personal vision roadmap where I walk through my one-to-one clients with, because this is so incredibly important. It's also in the Time Wealthy Advantage book. But regardless, walk through that. Start to think about what you would want that to be so your business vision can exist to serve that. Okay? So now let's talk about business vision. Now, the business vision, this is going to be foundational to everything else you're going to do in your business plan. Personal vision doesn't have anything to do with a business plan. That's just me letting you know this Viper framework, and I have to stay true to that. But the business vision, I'm telling you, anytime I get hired, anytime I get brought into a company as a strategist, they're hiring me as a strategic consultant, they're hiring me as a fractional CSO, which is a chief strategic officer, and I'm basically working as a consultant. Anytime I get brought into an organization, I'm looking at their organization through these 3 C's. And any time that there is dysfunction, where there is a lot of turnover, where there's lots of gossip going on, there's lots of infighting and just a bad environment, they've got lots of turnover of clients, they're struggling with sales, their accounting is a complete mess. Anytime I'm looking at any sort of dysfunctions, it's got some sort of hole in one of these 3 C's. So these 3 C's are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. I'm going to be spending a few minutes on these. So don't get bored. Don't scroll away. Just hang in there, because these 3 C's are absolutely critical. And if you have any weakness in one of these 3 things, I'm telling you, it's going to be like blood in the water to your competitors. So let's talk about core purpose. Core purpose is specifically, what business are you in and what problems do you specifically solve? And it's really important that you be highly specific in your answers. If I ask you what business that you're in and you tell me real estate, that does not tell me very much. In fact, that tells me very little about your core purpose, because I have no idea what you do. Do you sell real estate? Do you do property management? Do you do Airbnbs, which quite frankly, Airbnbs is more of the hospitality business than it is the real estate business. But what business are you specifically in, and what problems do you specifically solve? If you're not clear on your core purpose, it's not going to get more magically clear when it leaves your lips to that next person's ears. So this is really critical. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with their core purpose because they think, well, we do lots of things. I respect that. But think of yourself like I want you to be like avatar based. I want you to think of like, what are the fundamental problems that you solve? Think of like a mechanic. Okay? A mechanic They don't just replace wiper blades. Can they replace wiper blades? Sure. Are there shops that only replace wiper blades? No, because they would probably starve, right? So, but they do other things, based around an avatar, based around probably passenger rated vehicles. Do they work on dump trucks? Probably not. Do they work on only passenger rated vehicles? Probably. Are there some that will only work on certain makes and models? Yeah. Yeah. Are there some that will work on all makes and models? There absolutely is. Will they work on transmissions? Probably not. Will they work on brakes and mufflers? Yeah. Right? You see what I'm saying? So that's where you start carving out and being a little obnoxious about what you don't do and being really honest about what you do and being really clear about that and being the best in the business when it comes to that. Okay? So that is your core purpose. Let's talk about let's talk about core values. So core purpose, again, think about what the absolute critical core purpose is and what is it you do. And then think about your core values. Core values is going to be a few minutes. And I know this sounds super squishy, but hang in there with me because this is something you cannot skip over. And if you're going to skip over this, you may as well skip the rest of this because the core values are what defines the DNA of your business. It defines the company culture. So the core values is what matters to you about this business and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business. It starts to define what your place is in the world, what your place is in the marketplace. So you might be thinking, well, again, as business owners, your business is just simply an extension of you, right? Now think about this. Let me know in the comment section, has any of you ever lost a friend because they were heading down a path that you were not willing to follow? Have you ever lost, it might have been might have been a romantic interest. It might have been even a member of your own family, but because they started doing things or were heading down a path, they wandered off the reservation, but because they were heading down that path that you weren't willing to follow, you're like, dude, I'm sorry, man. I love you like a brother. I love you because you are my brother, but I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to excise you from my life. I can't allow that. And that's why I'm saying when you start to think about the different things that are important to you, listen, we all walk around with a set of values. And we, like for example, we value lots of different things, but our core values are things that we're willing to act upon. And that's how you know something is a core value. So you might be thinking, okay, well, how do I actually do this? And how do I make this tangible? Okay, perfect. I'm glad you asked. So if you, let's say for argument's sake that, again, like I value peanut M&Ms. That's a value of mine. Am I willing to go to war over peanut M&Ms? No. Someone breaks in and I still got to go buy some peanut M&Ms. I'm out. But if someone broke in here and said, give me your peanut M&Ms, I'm like, dude, take them, right? But if they break into my house and threaten my family, they're going to be met with war. And that's the difference between, something is a core value. It's not just a value. It's a core value when you're willing to get up off the couch and go do something about it. That's the difference. Okay. So so in terms of this, have you ever had someone? Yeah, absolutely. Tremont, thank you. Rashonda, yeah, and it sucks, right? I have mastered the art of detachment. Boundaries keep you safe. They do, but they also keep people out, but there's also people that it keeps in, right? It keeps people safe, right? It keeps you safe. It keeps you emotionally safe. And that's really good. Different mindset. Absolutely right. Ismail says, yes, I have. And, Fashionette, yes. And again, it sucks, right, guys? Like this is stuff that when you go down that road and it's heartbreaking, but it also allows you to exist in peace. And that is where, when you're defining your core values. So follow me here for just another minute. The core values, they define the company culture. And the company culture and the company brand are inextricably linked. The company culture is what's experienced by the people inside the organization. The company brand is what's experienced by the people outside the organization. And I am telling you, everybody that sets up a business, they give some kind of half-witted thought to what core values would will be, but they never really define them. And as a result, the company culture is defined by the strongest personality in the room. And if it's not always you, that is a problem. So Take the time to define those core values. Think about what really matters to you. Think about that awful boss that you worked for. Well, what was the violation of the core value? Maybe they were, you know what? Yeah, they lied all the time. I couldn't stand it. Or they would do one thing and say another. They were out of integrity. Okay. But use those extremes in your relationships, in your life, to start to define the core values. Okay. So moving on from core values, again, you're going to hear this again, but I'm just letting you know you have to take the time to actually define it, because that's what's going to not only bring in the type of people that you want to work with, it's also going to bring in the type of people you want to work for. So define those company core value, or those business core values. So we talk core purpose, we talk core values. Next is client avatar. This is critical. And I cannot tell you how many times I would ask someone that said, man, I'm really struggling with my marketing. Cool. Who are you going after? Well, anybody who... Stop right there. If you're using the word anybody to describe your avatar, I'm telling you, it's probably not dialed in enough. I really like working with married. They tend to be Christian, but they have faith in God. They tend to be married, faithful people who have children at home, that are in business for themselves, that are absolutely swamped. Those are the people that I tend to attract. Those are the people that I like to work with. Now, if they're not married, will I work with people? Sure, I work with people who are not married all the time. Do I work with people who don't have a faith? They have to have some faith, right? Because I'm pretty open about my faith. I'm not going to punch them in the mouth with Jesus, but I am going to be honest about what my thoughts are, right? In terms of what my faith in God is. I don't want to filter that, because that's, again, a violation of my core values. But will I work with some people who are in business for themselves, or just using a startup? I've worked with both, right? So, but again, if I'm getting someone who's like, let's say I've got these 6 items laid out, and like they're like 2 out of the 6, you know what, my brother? I think you might be a better candidate for someone else to work with, right? Again, I would much rather you be a satisfied customer of someone else's than a dissatisfied customer of mine. So that's why I'm saying, when you define this client avatar, it's really important you know these people well. And I do know my avatar exceedingly well, because I've taken so much time to research them and get to know them. So who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? And that's when you're defining your client avatar. So I want you to define them in 3 ways. What are their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics? Geographics is pretty straightforward. Geographics is where they are. Where are they? Where do they exist? Where do they work? Where are they in the world? Okay. The demographics is who they are. Are they married? Are they single? Are they old? Are they young? Are they middle-aged? Are they, do they have children? Are they educated? Are they not? Like, whatever. Where are they in the demographic spectrum? And it's really important you identify them as many ways as possible so you can reach them in your marketing. When you do a marketing analysis and you're doing a feasibility analysis, you've got to be able to find these people in some way. But if you don't have them defined, it's really hard to hit a target that you don't know exists. It's really hard to hit a target that you haven't defined. When it comes to psychographics, this is probably the most important out of the 3. They're all important, but the psychographics is really, really important. So the psychographics is how they think and how they buy. How they think and how they buy. So when you're thinking psychographics, I want you to think of the phrase ALIA, A-L-I-A. I want you to think of their attitudes. I want you to think of their lifestyles. I want you to think of their interests, and I want you to think of their aspirations and their goals in life. Let's unpack these just a little. So what's their attitude? Think about this, and you guys can, if you guys have an avatar really dialed in and you want to put it up on the screen, go ahead, let me know. But if you don't, I want you to think about what's their attitude towards your product or service. What's their attitude towards education? I'll tell you one thing for free. I've told you lots of things for free so far, but I'll tell you what, we use a Bluey phraseology. When you have a 3.5-year-old, everything's around Bluey. But that's something that Chili says all the time, or Bandit says all the time. So the attitude is, what is the attitude like? For me, it's really important they have a good positive attitude towards education and a good positive attitude towards change. Because if they don't, I'm going to be battling uphill with them the entire way. What's their attitudes towards people who do what I do? Now, I'm not really a coach, although I use coaching as a tool in my toolbox. I'm a strategist, and it's important that they see value in what it is that I bring to the table. If they don't see value, and some people, well, why would I hire you when I can just go on YouTube and get the same information? Okay, if you're asking that question, then you don't see any value that I bring to the table. And usually people will say that after maybe talk with me for a while, but they generally have an attitude of distaste for people who do what I do, who offer life and business advice. So I get that. I understand that. I respect it, but they're not my avatar. Okay, next. So that's important for you to understand the avatar so you can attract the people that you want and repel the people you don't. That's being magnetic in your marketing, attracting those you want and repelling those you don't. That's being magnetic. You don't want to attract everybody because then you will wind up with no one. Let's look at lifestyles. Lifestyles are they young and jet setting? Or are they older and they like to hang around with their grandkids? Whatever. Do they like to go on vacations a lot? What's their lifestyle like? What are their interests? Do they like American football? Do they like European football? Do they like NASCAR? Or do they like Formula One? Whatever. Think of their interests. And then when you understand their interests, you're also able to reach them much more effectively. Because if you know there's a big race weekend coming up, right, in Talladega, you'd be like, oh, cool. I don't, and you're sending them out an email and you know they're race fans. Maybe you can mention something about Talladega. Make sense? Same thing with their aspirations. And this is a really critical one because if I know your goals, if I know your aspirations, if I know what you're trying to get to, not just in business, but in life too, personal vision, here comes the ground again like a bad penny. But if I know their aspirations in life and in business, don't you think it would make sense if I could align my product or service towards their aspirations? It would be much easier to market towards them. I'll tell you that. Yes, the answer is yes. So all of this stuff, the 3 C's of business vision are foundational to everything that you're going to enter into your business plan. Those 9 segments of the business plan that you're going to see in the download is everything is going to relate to one of these 3 areas and multiple facets. So literally from a 1 to a 10, you don't need to put it up on the screen if you don't want to, but from a 1 to a 10, where would you rank yourself in core purpose, core values, and client avatar? 3 different rankings. And I'm telling you this, if none of these are written down, you can't rank yourself more than a 5. I'm just going to be honest with you, because our brains have ways of tricking us into thinking one thing, and you look at something 6 months later and it's completely different. I'm just saying, if it's not written down, I'm not going to say you can't be more than a 5. So if it is written down, if it's not a 5, whatever, put yourself and rank yourself in each of these 3 areas, 1 to 10. Okay. And that's what I want you to do. Like I said, you don't have to put it up on screen if you don't want to. Okay. So I'm getting, so an 8, is that an 8 overall, Shashina, or is that 8 for one of those areas? I've got a 5, Rashonda. So, okay. Maybe not written down. Gigi's putting a 7. Okay. That's fine. So if you're looking at these overall, like an 8 and a 7, these are some pretty decent numbers. I've got a 9. April's got a 9. So you're dialed in on all 3 of these areas. That sounds pretty good, April. I love that. Michelle is a 2. I love the honesty because this is hard. This is hard work. This is where it gets really difficult. Ismail is saying 3. Rashonda is saying all areas. So you are a 5 in all areas. Okay, perfect. All right. So listen, guys, this is tough. So rank yourself 1 to 10 in all of these areas individually. And if there's an area where you're a 7 or below, you've got some work to do. If you're an 8, 9, or 10, I would probably work on the other areas first and get a little bit more clarity, because it's going to help you much more in your business plan. Okay. Shashina is saying 8 overall. Purpose and values are solid. I love that. I love that. That is especially values. And if you've got those written down, even better, even better. I can drill down on my client avatar. Perfect. All right. And that will absolutely help you, especially if you've got core purpose written down. And here's what I would say. If you can't communicate your core purpose in like 2 breaths, what do I mean by that? Like, there's an example, Shashina, like I do blah, 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 which does blah, 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 blah. That's 2 breaths. And if you can't do that in 2 breaths, it's probably not clear enough. So it's kind of like an elevator pitch. It's really when it's broken down into that core purpose, right? So for me, I really love educating small business owners who have children at home who are really buried in their calendars. That's it, right? Like, so now someone might say, oh, cool. How do you do that? Or, hey, that sounds pretty cool, right? That for me, I know exactly what my core purpose is. I generally do it by education and working with them as a strategist. I know what I do. I know what I do well because I've been working at this for so long. Okay. So, my elevator pitch sucks. That's okay. Hey, listen, it's okay. Everybody sucks at everything at the beginning, right? But keep working at it. Keep working at that. Gigi's saying, I just looked at my current pitch plan and I would say 9. I love that. Fantastic, Gigi. Good for you. All right, so let's keep rolling. So we've got the core purpose, core values, client avatar. That is everything. We're going to put land the plane on vision. We're going to move on to infrastructure. Now, infrastructure is something that is addressed in your business plan. A lot of times, though, people don't really address it directly, and I'll talk about this here in a second. And the reason why, so let me describe what infrastructure actually is, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. When it comes to infrastructure, infrastructure is like the bones of the business. It's like the gears that work in the background. It's the bones of your business when you're thinking of like your desks and your chairs and the computers and the phones and the software, the websites, the payment processing portals, all of the things, right? And the infrastructure is so incredibly important to the business because many people think of infrastructure very much as an afterthought. It comes directly after vision. Well, why? Why, if it's so important, why does it come after vision? Why doesn't it come first? Why does vision come first? Let's ask that question. Well, here, let's look at it this way. Let's say, Michelle, let's say Michelle's vision is, her personal vision is to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year, rubbing cocoa butter on her belly. Fine vision. Okay. If she builds an infrastructure that's going to require her to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrible experience for her when she's trying to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year, rubbing cocoa butter on her belly. Make sense? So you're going to create an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision for the future. That's why you do it. Now, do you have to build out every possible piece of infrastructure that you're ever going to need? No, but you are going to build it like a Sudoku puzzle. And it's important that you start thinking of these things now because infrastructure costs money. And when people are like, oh, I had to spend all this money and I wasn't expecting it because they never really thought about infrastructure, it was more of an afterthought. That's why infrastructure comes. It's the first component of the system that you're going to be creating. So we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure. Now let's talk about process. Process doesn't really make it to a business plan in its granular sense. I am going to talk about it here just in a little bit because, again, I can't help it. I'm a teacher at heart and I want you to learn something outside of the business plan as well. But at some point, you're going to have to start talking about process. Process is how you do stuff. And it comes in both a tactical perspective and a strategic perspective. Let's talk first about tactical. Tactical is just how you do stuff from the day to day. That's it. It's your standard operating procedures. It's your checklist items. It's your day-to-day activities. Okay? So that's the stuff. That's how you do stuff from a day-to-day perspective. That's it. It's your opening procedures. It's your closing procedures. It's how you prepare bank deposits. It's all of those things. Okay? Let's talk about let me make this quick point. If I take and put a box around infrastructure and the tactical part of process, that's the system. That's the system that you built for the business. That's like, think of that like the battleship, or you just created this war ship. And now you don't just want the ship staying moored at the harbor, right? You want to take it out and go make some trouble with it. You want to drive that boat in a strategic direction. Otherwise, if you don't, and you just kind of take what shows up, you're going to get knocked around by whatever economic winds happen to be blowing around. Okay? This is why it requires you to be strategic. So you got to take that boat and drive it out of the harbor. That's why there's two components to process. So when it comes to process, it involves strategic planning, which takes 3 components. It takes the people, it takes the purpose, and it takes promotion. People, purpose, and promotion are the foundations of strategic planning. Let me unpack this just a little. So when I'm talking about the people, okay, now this is something that absolutely would make it into a business plan. Why? Because it's important that they know there's a strategic direction that, okay, is there a certain market that is heading in a certain direction? I'll give you an example. Right now, there is a real, there's an anomaly that's going on in the market for certain type of the market that I pay attention to. And that is, I'm a real estate guy. I spend a lot of time paying attention to real estate and real estate valuations. I also pay attention to the price of gold and silver. Well, there's an anomaly going on. And that anomaly is right now, if you were to buy let's say that if you were to take the unit price of gold and the unit price of a median house in the United States, it would take you about 80 ounces of gold to buy a house for the median price. That's the lowest it's been since like 1979. Okay, so do you think there's an anomaly going on in the market? Yes, there is. And am I paying attention to it? Yes, I am. Right? So it's important for me that I'm driving my assets towards a strategic direction. I can't do that if I'm not paying attention. I can't do that if I don't know what are all the elements that are playing out on the field. That's why a strategic plan is important. Otherwise, I'm just going to get blown around by the economic winds, and then I get to complain about it on Facebook, and everyone goes, yeah, man, you're right. It sucks. Right? Well, it sucks because you don't plan. So I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just saying this is why planning is so important. So when you're looking at the people, you're looking at the people, not just the people that are outside your organization. By the way, if you're trying to attract a new, who are the people you're trying to attract? That might be someone who is your client avatar. Maybe it's a segment of the client avatar, right? That you learned about in the 3 C's of business vision. So maybe you're like, yeah, I really like working with married couples, but just for a little while, I'm going to start focusing on some single folks. Or maybe I really like working with people in this segment of the real estate, but really I want to segment them off and carve them off and just deal with people with raw land. Make sense? So that could be you're either going after a completely new avatar or a segment of your existing avatar. Either way. That's the people component. But there's also another people component of the people inside your organization. Who are you going to need that's more than you? Because I'm telling you this, that there's no way you're going to be able to do all of the critical functions of the business all at the same time. The lead generation, the sales, the operations, the accounting. You're not going to be able to do all 4 core of those functions. I'll come back to that again in case you didn't get a chance to write that down. So who are the people outside the organization that you're going to need, and who are the people inside the organization that you're going to need? Make sense? All right. So let's get to the purpose. The purpose, the strategic purpose, has to be in alignment with what? That's right. It has to be in alignment with your core purpose. And if you're trying to do something that's not in alignment with your core purpose, it should be ringing alarm bells. So if that, it would be like as if Starbucks started selling chainsaws. It doesn't make sense. And someone at Starbucks goes, well, we're selling them because we can. Great. But you are probably screwing yourself with all these loyal customers who don't want motor oil anywhere around their coffee. Okay? And I'm just telling you, I'm bringing this up because I know a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs who have that shiny object syndrome, that once something gets a little bit too hard, they wander off and they're like, well, I get bored. And they wander off into something else. It's like, okay, so you're not creating businesses. What you're doing is creating jobs, and you do that job long enough until you get bored with that job. And that's generally what happens. I'm not here to be mean. I'm speaking plainly to you because this is exactly what happens. So this strategic purpose, it could be to expand market share. It could be to launch a new product, launch a new service. It could be to vertically integrate into a new existing market, whatever. What's the strategic purpose? What are you doing? What's the point of this strategic plan? And last of the strategic planning is promotion. Promotion is just saying, like, imagine you just are living in a world of nothing but teenagers where you have to repeat yourself a lot. Okay? I'm just being a little playful. I know some teenagers are amazing, but generally you have to repeat yourself a lot when it comes to a teenager. Like, hey, I asked you 19 times, take out the trash, right? But the thing is with the promotion, it's just communicating, but doing it often. And promoting is doing it outwardly to your client avatar, but also promoting it and having frequent conversations internally with your employees, with your vendors, with your contractors, and making sure that they're still on board with this strategic plan. So I'm going to have to leave that there, but this is all about the strategic around process. We talk tactical, we talk strategic. Now let's look at the execution component of the Viper methodology. And again, this generally does not make it into the business plan, but it is absolutely worth talking about. So I'm going to do this over two minutes. And here the thing is, a good plan violently executed right now is way better than the perfect plan executed next week. So if you're waiting for your business plan to be absolutely amazing, I'm telling you, you're going to miss out on opportunities. Okay? So this is why And the reason I'm bringing this up is because most plans fall apart in their execution. And the problem with that is because most of you, as much as I love you, my fellow brethren and sistren of business and entrepreneurs, you have a priority problem. And it's, again, this is where you have this to-do list of like 37 items that you're going to get done today. Come on, man. It ain't going to happen. And this is where you start to recognize that having too many priorities has the same impact as having none. And this is exactly why I break things down into what's called a daily 5. Now, this doesn't really have anything to do specifically with the business plan, but it does have everything to do with how you execute your business plan. So if you've got a business plan and you're putting this thing together and you don't execute well, you've got no one else to blame but you. So here's what I'm talking about with the daily 5. The daily 5 are up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take, which are going to move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan. Either one. And I say up to 5, and I mean it's highly specific actions that are going to be the needle movers. Is it going to be like, well, check email? No, that is not going to make the list. Does it mean that that everything on your to-do list needs to be only daily 5 actions? No, you're going to have a to-do list that's well outside of that, but you have to have daily 5 actions that are going to be the needle movers. The things are going to be like, I need to make 30 outreach calls today. That's one item. Okay, great. And it says up to 5. For me, if I have 3, I'm golden. If I have 5, man, I'm running hot. I can't do back-to-back 5 days for too many days in a row. I will burn myself out. But if I have 3, I'm golden. I can do 3 and almost work every single day of the week. I take Sundays off, but I'm just saying 3 is best for me, but 5, up to 5 highly specific actions that are the needle movers, and that is your execution. So now let's look at, we went through vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting, or we went through execution. Now let's talk about reporting. Reporting is just simply tracking what happened. You're tracking your lead metrics and you're tracking your lag metrics. The lead metrics are your activities. That's it. What did you do? How many phone calls did you make? How many doors did you knock? How many letters did you send out? How many emails, direct emails got sent? These are the sorts of things that I'm talking about in terms of your actions and activities. And if your actions and activities are not giving you the results you want, which are your lag metrics are the results. So if you're not getting the results, you just simply look at the actions and activities. And I would say, generally for most things, if you have 1,000 to 1,500 data points, that should give you plenty of, okay, if I've done 1,000 or 1,500, I've done enough and I'm still not getting the results I want, I probably have to pivot. And that's exactly what I do in my marketing. I'm looking at the number of people that have seen my ad, and if it's generally between 1,000 and 1,500 and I'm not getting anybody that's moving the needle, next, I move it on. Because otherwise I'm just going to keep pouring more information and more resources into my losers, and that is exactly the opposite of what you should be doing. All the successful people, they find their winners and then they pour jet fuel on it. That's what the winners are doing. They're not trying to prop up their losers with their winners. Okay, so let's keep rolling. So we went through the systems component. Now let's talk about the psychology component. We're talking about the individuals, right? And this is the leadership and the management side. The psychology is absolutely important because especially as it relates to the leadership and management. We'll get to that in a second. The systems are really important to consider, but the systems are only going to bring you so far. Systems will offer you stability. They will offer you consistency, even accountability, but they're limited when it comes to making subjective decisions or adapting to rapid market changes or creative solutions, or even maintaining human connections. And I mean human connections. I'm not talking about using AI. I'm talking about the human connection of like, oh, Teal, I knew she was either in Ohio or in Washington or somewhere else, right? So, and she happened to be in Maryland. So I knew she's somewhere. And that's what I'm talking about when you're thinking about maintaining that human connection. AI will struggle with that. And I don't want you to substitute AI for maintaining that human connection, because I'm telling you, people want authenticity. That is what they are dying for. And that's where it will relate to buying psychology. So when you're looking at the psychology, you're looking at both two components. You're looking at the personal and individual psychology and the business and organizational psychology. On the personal psychology side of things, and this generally does not make it into a business plan. I'm just letting you know, but it's something that you need to be thinking about now. So in the personal psychology, this is the stuff, this is the head trash that you're bringing to the business. This is, again, we've all got head trash. It might be a bad relationship with money. It might be a bad relationship with time. It might be you have a great skill for starting things, but you have a terrible habit of not finishing things. Sound familiar? Ask me how I know. Okay? I am not perfect by any stretch, and these are the things that I struggle with at times. But even last year, I wrote and published 5 books. And I'm very proud of those books. They're very, very good books. And yeah, there was one that was like my, the Time Wealthy Advantage. Then I had 4 supporting supplemental guides that went along with those. And I was able to do that because I was so able to dial in and set aside some of that head trash. But that's what I'm talking about. You're thinking of personal psychology, things related to self-worth and self-management and limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging behaviors and all those things. The business psychology is related to external psychology and internal psychology. This side, the business psychology, is what's important, and that will make it to the business plan, and it should, and it does need to have those considerations. When you're looking at external psychology, you're looking at things, or you got external and internal. When you're looking at external psychology, you're thinking of like buying psychology. You're looking at vendor negotiations. You're even looking at things like politics. Yeah, not office politics. I'm talking like the big boy politics. Like, yes, your local judges, if you're starting to have an impact on your local on your local commerce, you're going to get noticed by the judge who wants to get reelected, or the prosecutor who's running for election for the first time, and all those sorts of people. I'm just telling you, be prepared, because this sort of stuff will show up, especially when you start hiring employees. The internal psychology is related to both management and leadership, and I'm going to spend a minute here on leadership. When it comes to leadership, and this is something you need to think about right now, especially as you're putting this together on your business plan, because the leadership absolutely will make a difference in terms of how effective your presence is and how you plan to structure this organization, not just in the hierarchy, but how do you plan to lead it? And these 3 pillars, I'm telling you, risks right now, you can be the most amazing leader, but you are not going to be effective if you don't possess these 3 things. You have to have trust, you have to have vision, and you have to have a solid communication style. Let's walk through these really fast. You may have an amazing vision of where you want to drive this organization, and you might be the most effective orator ever and a very good communicator. But if people don't trust you, they are not going to follow you. They're not. They might follow you out of morbid curiosity, but they're not going to follow you if they don't trust you. If you have their trust, and let's say that you spent that time sharing and getting a shared vision, right? Not again, because people are always much more willing to carry a ball that they helped inflate. That is why you have to have a shared vision. Bring them into the vision. Don't just come down like Moses with the tablets and say, here's the vision, right? And they have to follow it. Bring them into the conversation. So you have their trust. You have this shared vision, but you are a horrible communicator. Again, like you type in all caps and you send these passive aggressive emails, or you scream at people, or you don't communicate often enough, you're not going to be an effective leader, and you may not know why. The last component of this is, let's say you have their trust and you are an effective communicator. You communicate with them often, you bring them into conversations, but you don't have this shared vision. Dude, that's your thing. That's not my thing. Again, you're not going to be as effective as a leader, and it will show. So you might be thinking, all right, this sounds all squishy and all, but does leadership really matter that much? Listen, I'm writing my next book called Leader Boss, and it's this whole concept of having this compassion versus candor, this caring versus candor. And most people who come and want to work with me, they are really good, warm human beings. They're really amazing folks, and they care deeply. But the problem is, because they have too much caring, too much compassion, and not enough candor, they get walked all over. They're too nice, and they don't bring up the things that need to be brought up. Let's look at the other side where there's too much candor. but not enough compassion, not enough caring. And they're like, man, they don't care about me. They only want their money. And as a result, these people will not do anything more than what is asked of them, and not one more thing. This is called legalism, where you have a bunch of policies and procedures to like, well, if they don't show up, they're going to get a write-up, right? That's too much candor. So you got to have an equal mix of both caring and candor. So I love this. What you're saying, Shashina, is people join companies, but they leave bad managers. Absolutely true. They do. You see, I didn't say leaders. That's exactly right. Yep, they do. They leave bad managers all the time. And again, it just goes into the people just don't forget how you made them feel, man. And I can think of some of the amazing managers I've had, amazing folks who have been in my life, and leaders, right? True leaders. But man, I can also think of those just people that would just want to like drown in the river, you know? But yeah, it just stinks. Rashawn is saying I have at least 3. Oh, you're talking about your elevator pitch? Yeah, you have at least 3. Okay. All right, excellent. Well, thank you, Shashina. All right, so again, when you're talking about this, you know, and again, this book will be written probably. I'm giving myself permission to pull it into neutral just for a little bit of time, but Leader Boss will probably be out in the next 6-8 months maybe. But when you're talking about a level 5 leader, a level 5 leader was defined by both John Maxwell and Jim Collins. They looked at level 5 leaders and define them a little differently. But a level 5 leader is someone who they are really company focused. They're focused on their people. They're focused on their customer. But they're taking the light that wants to be shined on them, and they're shining it in a different direction. They're saying, hey, look, I understand that things are good, but listen, I have an amazing team. Or hey, I understand things are bad. That is my fault, and I will take that. That's what a level 5 leader does. And these level 5 leaders, as defined by both Jim Collins and John Maxwell, they were significantly more profitable. They grew much faster. They had a much stronger company culture, and wait for it, they had a defined set of core values. Oh my God, it's like a bad frickin' penny. Keeps coming back around. This is why all this stuff needs to be defined in your business plan. Somewhere, find a spot to put it in so it'll make sense. Now, I'm just going to give you this quick bit of data where if you're looking at these 4 companies, Amgen, Intel, Microsoft, and Southwest, Jim Collins reported this in his book Great by Choice, where he tracked these companies over 30 years and look at the market returns that they had. This is 24 times more than the market. So if you put $1,000 in the S&P 500 and $1,000 in Amgen, you would have made 24 times more money. Look at Southwest, you'd have made 63 times more money. That's what I'm talking about. And these were companies that had amazing leadership. And the 100 best places to work, those lists that often come out, they are frequently represented the highest stock returns with great leaders. So leadership makes a huge difference. And the reason for that is because growth requires change, and leadership is what manages that change. And if you're the type of leader that likes to take forever to make decisions, look, your team cannot outpace you. So you set the tempo. You as the leader set the speed, because the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. So I just want you to think about that. You may need to start getting more comfortable making decisions a little bit faster with imperfect information. Let's talk about the 4 core functions of business. So the 4 core functions are as follows. They're lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey through your organization happens in that order. First lead gen, then sales, then operations, then accounting. So I want you to think about that as you're looking to grow this organization. It's really important that you think about all these 4 functions in the context of your business planning. What are you going to do for lead generation? What are multiple ways you're going to try to attract your client avatar, your target audience? Once they get into your atmosphere, how are you going to sell to them? How are you going to maintain contact with them? What's the infrastructure you're going to use? What are the processes you're going to have? Right? You see, you're going to run the Viper framework through all 4 of these functions. What's the infrastructure? What are the processes? Through the operations, then through the accounting. And again, think about it. Are all these the same function? No, that's why you need individuals. You need other people in your organization to do these functions, because you cannot do them all. Let's look at the final part, which is setting to scale. And then when you're talking about the 4 core functions, you're talking about lead generation. This is about targeting your client avatar and bringing into your world, into your atmosphere, into your company's zone. You know exactly who it is that you want to work with, and they're much easier for you to direct your marketing. We've talked about this already. And these are the people who bring about the most amount of money and bring in the least amount of drama. I don't know about you, but at 53, I am about dialing down the drama in my life. So I'm going to put this up here, and this is directly related to buying psychology, and it also helps you get really clear in terms of your avatar and who they are and how you're going to market to them. So I'm going to take myself down so you can take maybe a quick screenshot, and as also I take a big giant gulp of water. So this is what I want you to think about, is when you're looking at the 15 reasons why people buy. They buy because they want to make money, they want to save money, they want to save time, avoid effort, they want to escape pain, which could be emotional pain or physical pain, even spiritual pain. They will buy for more comfort. They will buy for better health, or basically could be less stress. They will buy to feel more love, gain praise, increase their status with their tribe. They will buy for truth, and they will especially buy for truth if they have felt lied to in the past. They will buy for growth, and that can be growth in their knowledge, growth in their wellness, right? They will buy simply because something's new. They will buy for the novelty of it. How many of you have bought a new iPhone just because it was new? People will buy for being more control, or more perceived control, right? And they will also buy to be in contribution to others. So when you're thinking about this is what I want you to do. This is some homework for you. Once you have defined your target audience and you know who these people are, right? You know your client avatar. I want you to think, put out 15 pieces of paper, put make money, save time, put all 15 of these on top of each one for its own piece of paper, and write down as many ways that your product or service serves them to indirectly or directly make money. How does your product or service, how do you help them directly or indirectly make money? Come up with 10 different ways how you directly or indirectly help them make money. And be a little creative with it. That's okay. Like, well, I mow lawns and I mow lawns for doctors. And if I can mow the lawn and free the doctor up to where he's charging, $800 an hour, I can help him make more money because he's not mowing the lawn. Okay? Get creative with your answers. How do you help them save money? How do you help them save time? Avoid effort, escape mental and physical pain, spiritual pain, etc., etc. I want you to get creative with these answers. And now, if you come up with 10 under each of these columns, some are going to be a little bit more easier than others. Some are going to be direct. Some of them are going to be more indirect. But if you come up with 10 different reasons, now you have 150 different ways how you can serve your avatar. That's really going to help you when you are putting out your marketing in your target audience, or to your target audience. Okay, so take the time to go through this list. Now, as we're going through this, and we're getting ready to kind of finish up here. But when you're going through the 4 core functions of business, look, everything needs to support this lead generation function, especially for those of you who are just starting out. I'm telling you, you cannot take your foot off the gas. I know everybody thinks about the deliverable and everything else on the front end, and I understand why you want to do that. But I'm telling you, once you have a real understanding of the core purpose of your business and the deliverable, you need to be spending any and all extra bandwidth on marketing that thing. Marketing the minimum viable product, the MVP. Because the truth is this, you can have the best, most efficient business. It can be an absolute amazing product or service, and you could be an absolute paragon of truth and justice and virtue. And your sales technique so dialed in, you could sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. None of that will matter. So you can never take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation, because everything else prior to that, or anything else that comes after, will not matter if you don't have leads. So your lead generation activities need to account for, and I would say this is a minimum, 60 to 70% of your total activities, which means if you are working a 10-hour day, yeah, 6 to 7 hours need to be in lead generation. If you have a team, I would still argue that 60 to 70% of their activities need to be directly related to lead generation activities. I'm just telling you, that's the reality, because especially trying to get something off the ground, and most people, their pricing is usually, well, what's the minimum pricing that's out there? What's the maximum pricing out there? And I'm going to go somewhere in the middle. Okay, I respect why people do that, but I have since learned that makes zero sense. I price my stuff based on value. And if people don't see value in what I bring to the table, next. Because there are literally billions of people out there. And trying to be somewhere in the middle, it just gives you mediocre results. So when you're looking at lead generation, you're looking at sales. Sales, all that's going to do is just continues the conversation that got started in the mind by the lead generation. And it also understands that effective selling is about finding solutions, not holding people's heads underwater until they say yes. All of these functions, by the way, these need to be really dialed in terms of how you're going to define these things in your business plan. Because if you don't take the time to define these things in your business plan and they just kind of show up, you're going to be setting yourself up for failure. So please take the time, get really dialed in on your lead generation, get really dialed in on your sales. And if you don't know enough about this, then educate yourself. Hire someone like me, hire a coach, hire a person that can teach you these things. Learn to read faster, learn to speed read. There's courses out there that'll teach you how to speed read. Get through this stuff much, much faster. That's how I'm able to read 40 some odd books in a year. I read 42 last year. I read 41 the year before that. And that has been my pace for a while. Well, guess what? My income was in direct proportion to the amount of books that I have read and being able to implement all those different things. So I'm just telling you, this is the secret sauce. It's work. It's a lot of damn work, but it is very much worth it. So let's get to the operational function. This is generally where you're gonna do something. If you're gonna get stuck, this is generally where you're gonna get stuck. You're gonna get stuck building the websites, if that's your thing. You're gonna get stuck putting on the roofs, if you're a roofer, right? You're gonna get stuck baking pies if you're a baker, right? That's generally where people get stuck. If you're going to ignore something, generally you're gonna ignore the accounting function. And generally it sounds like this. Well, I've got more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay. I have a degree in accounting, okay? And I have said those very words. So I'm just telling you, I am the least qualified and most unlikely person to do my own books. That's why I have to have someone else do it. And this is why, are all these things the same skill set? You know they're not the same skill set. That's why you need people. And when you're bringing people into your organization, guess what they need to be aligned with? That's right. They need to be aligned with your core values. That's why that is so foundational, because you don't want someone coming to work with you that does not align with your core values. Again, like I said, the core values define company culture, and the company culture and the company brand are inextricably linked. And the other thing around core values is they create unity inside the organization, and vision will thrive in an environment of unity. That's really important to remember. And when you have this vision that you're sharing with them, and you have this unified group that's all rowing in the same direction, man, that's something really cool. And I have an amazing set of people that work with me inside Strategic Boardroom, and we all share the same values. So just something to consider. All right, so I'm going to share with you the resources, and I'm going to share with you how to get the actual business plan. Before I do that, I just want to break this down. There are 9 components within the business plan itself, which starts with industry, the product or service, the target market, which is also the target audience. We talked about that. That's the client or avatar. The industry and the product or service is related to the core purpose. The demographics and the market size, that relates to, remember the within the 3 C's, the core, the client avatar. We talked about the geographics, the demographics, and the psychographics. This, in terms of competition, this is really important to understand the competitive landscape, but it's also important from that perspective as you're developing your marketing strategy. And that's related to the things we talked about in the strategic planning component. Remember both the tactical and the strategic when it came to process. So we talked about marketing strategy and people, purpose, and promotion. We're going to be, you'll identify critical risks. Oh my goodness, critical risks and with a SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There's a financial component to this, which is your pro forma balance sheet and your pro forma income statement. And when I say pro forma, I know that sounds really fancy. That just means projected. That's all that means. And people are like, oh, pro forma, and you have like, yeah, I totally know what that means. And you're like Googling pro forma. It just means projected. That's all. And then what metrics and milestones? And you heard that before too, with the R function in Viper, which is your lead metrics and your lag metrics. So if you're ready to download your business plan, you can download it directly. Let me get my big old dome out of the way. So what you're going to do is you're going to head to strategicboardroom.com. And when you get, and I'll go through this twice. So if you get behind, I'm going to go through this twice. So you go to strategicboardroom.com, you're going to wind up at this page right here. Okay. And that's if you're on a desktop. If you're on a mobile, it'll look a little bit different. You'll just have to click the hamburger, and you'll see at the very top, courses and logins, courses and logins. So when you get in there, your page will look kind of like this. Then you're just going to scroll down a little bit. So scroll down. You'll see right under the free courses and downloads, when you get to the free section, there'll be free 9-step business plan template, and you don't even have to enter your email. You just click to download it. So let me go through that one more time for the people in the back. Go to strategicboardroom.com. You go to courses and logins. That'll pop up. You scroll down, and it's right there. It's the first one under the free courses and download section. So you just click on that and you will be good to go. All right. So have a couple of things here. See, Gigi, I have worked for Microsoft for 25 years. My leader, who just announced his retirement today, was the best leader I have ever worked for. I was with him for 22 years alone. That's amazing. And I'll tell you, when you work around a good leader like that, man, it changes you. It makes you better. It makes you a better human. I love that. And I love that for you, Gigi. Congratulations. So for those of you who have any questions, this is all I have. There's really no new material beyond this. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to type those in. I am going to talk really quickly about the Money and Finance Business Owner Bootcamp that's coming up on the 21st. So if you want to hop off, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I just want to, for those of you who want to stick around and learn a little bit about this, the Money and Finance Bootcamp is about understanding the things that we talked about. So remember the financial piece where we're talking about pro forma balance sheets and pro forma income statements. If you don't know what a balance sheet is, or you don't know what an income statement is, or you don't know the relationship between them, the interrelationship between a balance sheet and an income statement, this would be a good session for you. It's a 3-hour session, and it does cost a few dollars. It's $39. And at the end of that, if you decide that it was not worth that, you will get your money back. In addition, I will do one better. You're also going to get access to the Money and Finance Advanced course in addition to that. So you don't have to do so anything that we don't cover in the Business Owner Bootcamp, and like I said, it's a 3-hour session. You will get the replay from that, but you will also get all the videos in the Advanced Money and Finance course. There's no way I'm going to be able to cover everything in that course in that 3 hours. And also I'm setting up time for the Q&A. So if you're interested, what I'll do is I'm going to put I think I already put the link in there from before, but here's what I will do. If you sign up today, is there a replay for this session? Yes. There is a replay. If you signed up through Eventbrite, you will get the replay sent to you automatically. So you don't have to do anything. Okay. So good question. So if you are interested and you are wanting to, if you sign up tonight, but you have to sign up tonight by midnight. If you sign up tonight by midnight, I will also give you a free strategy session in addition to joining the course, but you got to sign up tonight. So it is not this coming Saturday, a week from Saturday. If you want to come, but you can't attend, you will get the replay on that and you'll get access to the course as well. So I'm just letting you know that is where you can get that stuff. So that is everything that I have. Let's see. I got some questions here. Is it Gilly? What advice do you have for a person that is about to start a cargo business? That there's a lot to that. So are you talking about air cargo? Are you talking about freight? There's a lot to that. So without much more specifics, it's going to be hard for me to identify that. But I mean, realistically, if you're just getting ready to start this, uh, and I don't know if you're going to be the one doing the deliverable and you're the one doing the fulfillment. Most people start cargo businesses that way. In fact, my father started a freight business, and this was back in the 70s and 80s. And my father got into the trucking business, and I think at the peak of his business, he had about 400 trucks and about 1,000 different trailers, and he had 5 or 6 different locations all within New York State. Now, keep in mind, and he exited that business during when the deregulation of the industry happened under Reagan, and he needed quite well. And keep in mind, that's a man with an 8th grade education, very, very, very smart guy. But it's a hard business. It's really hard. I will tell you, if you're looking at over the road freight right now, there's been such a, especially in the United States. I don't know where you're at, but in the United States, there's been a dearth of truckers. So if you're starting that and getting into that, main thing is, man, pay attention to your cash flow. Pay attention to what goes out. Don't pay attention to what comes in. Pay attention to what goes out more than anything else. That was something my father, he said that over and over and over again. You have to watch your cash flow. So not knowing much more about your business, hopefully that's helpful for you. But go through everything that we talked about today, and that should certainly help you out. Ismail saying, thank you for the session. I learned a lot. You are more than welcome. And the replay. Soima says, thank you. You're welcome. Jessica Beeben, thank you. Great information. You are more than welcome. So you're saying freight. Okay, so freight cargo. Yeah, that's what I would say. And again, if you're in the United States, you are in Orlando. So yeah, I don't know that market specifically well enough, but it sounds like you're doing LTL in Orlando, which is less than truckload. So if you're doing LTL, and most shippers, they do pretty well with LTL. If you're planning on doing LTL and not long road over the road, LTL trucking can do really, really well, but man, there's a lot of logistics involved. So set up your infrastructure deep and heavy early on so you can keep track of all that stuff really, really well. Okay. You are saying thank you. I will. Okay. Excellent. All right. Great session. Learn a lot. Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. You guys have been very, very dialed in and very engaged. Thanks so much for sticking around, and hopefully I will see you in a couple of weeks. Until then, I'll see you guys in the boardroom. Take good care.